I wanted to talk about, I think one of the first questions that I have that just struck me when I'm looking at your podcast is this way of you explaining how we're living in a very narcissistic time. And parents have really are looking at their children as burdens instead of value. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Mothering and parenting is very hard work. It's always been hard work. But the responsibility of it was pleasurable in the past. Not always, but mostly, right? So we took pleasure in giving. We took pleasure in caring and loving and giving. And I think in a generation which hasn't been given to, I would say actually three generations now that haven't been given to, then the giving makes them feel angry and resentful, and dependency makes them feel frightened and resentful. And so that's a symptom of not being given to. If we're given to, we more naturally feel pleasure and joy in giving. If we're not given to, we feel less pleasure and joy in giving and feel more resentment and anger. And so what we're seeing is sort of three generations going on four of young people feeling resentful about things like dependency, which used to be something that was incredibly pleasurable.
What do you think, I mean, from your perspective, what changed in mothering or parents in general that this happened?
Well, a number of things changed. I suppose the biggest, most obvious thing is the feminist movement,
Yes.
which was a necessary thing, right? Because before that, women didn't have choices, right? So they were having children even though they didn't want children. They were getting married and having children because it was the only thing that society allowed them to do. I think we needed to have a movement that allowed women to have choice, right? That they choose to have children, not that they're forced to have children. But having said that, in doing that, in freeing women and giving them the choice, it sort of perverted the message. The message should have been, you have a choice now, but children and raising children is an incredibly important part of life. What are we if we can't raise our own healthy children to be our legacy? They're our legacy, not our work, not our money, not materially what we leave behind. In Judaism, I'm Jewish, we say when someone passes away, we say, may their memory be a blessing. And so we always think of our legacy are the relationships we leave behind, not our stuff. But I think that what's happened is that the women's movement said, right, raising children is not meaningful and important work. Work outside the home is more important. Making money is more important. Economically and career-wise, competing with men is more important. And if you don't do that, it said, you're not part of the movement. You're not a feminist. You're not a modern woman if you don't work outside the home. And that was a very perverse message. Instead of saying mothering is critical to the survival of our species, and it's such an important role. But you can also have a choice now, women, that you can have a linear career and not have children, and that should also be admirable and respectable. And if you choose to mix it up and have both, you can do both in life. You just can't do them all at the same time well. So think of timing in life and choose when you're going to have these fabulous careers outside the home, and then be willing and courageous enough to step off that path, to care for your young and give them all of you, and then be willing to go back. It didn't, again, sometimes when movements are trying to they create an extreme. The pendulum swings very far. So that's one of the things that happened. The other thing that happened, I would say, is advertising, television, the movies, technology. We usually say technology today, like Jonathan Haidt wrote a book about technology. I would say media. It was the beginning of advertising and the movie industry and television. Again, not to demonize it. It's wonderful. I love watching movies and I love, but the concept is that what it did is it portrayed it portrayed materialism, and it portrayed economic prosperity
Mm.
as the signs of success, right? So if you buy this vacuum cleaner,
Yes.
you will be modern. If you buy this new house and these new cars, and that made people suddenly feel as if they were lacking, and that if they didn't have the cars and the vacuum cleaner and the bigger house, and if they didn't look like supermodels and like movie stars and have the beautiful clothes, that they were lacking and they weren't modern. And so that preceded social media and television, social media and technology that we see today. And the problem with that is it whet people's appetite in a way for material success over relational success. So it was a
Yeah.
combination of societal things that said, what does it mean to be modern? And what does it mean to be a modern woman? And, to be modern, you had to have all this stuff. And to have all this stuff, you have to go out to work and you have to make lots of money. And,
That's right.
so sacrifice for relationships went out the window.
That's right. Which I think also puts so much pressure on the dads at home because in this new age, in the new world where you have all this stuff that's coming up, I have to have the latest bag, I have to have the latest vacuum. In one income, it's difficult to, have all these things. So it kind of like pushed women into these jobs. And so that pushed these children away as priority, I think. And I think that's what you're explaining, which is so beautifully said. It is these stuff.
Also, Gloria Steinem said, she said, go out to work outside the home. And again, you're not modern if you don't go out to work outside the home. So, and she didn't mention anything about children. She actually said children will be just fine. Just find someone to care for them. They'll all be just fine. And she never had children.
Oof.
So she made that linear decision
Mhm.
to be a career woman, and she was very successful at it and whatever. But so what got forgotten in all of it were children.
Yeah.
And what got forgotten is the joy of mothering, because there were a lot of women who loved mothering who were told that they were insignificant and they weren't modern.